There's a moment in every man's life when clarity punches him square in the jaw. Mine came wrapped in rose gold foil with embossed calligraphy. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Celeste Thompson and Derek Graves. My wife's sister, Celeste. The family darling. The she can do no wrong princess of in-laws I never really belonged to. I still remember the way my mother-in-law squinted at our wedding, like the sun was in her eyes, or maybe just the sight of me beside her daughter made her physically nauseous. Either way, it was clear from day one. I was the plus one they never wanted. Now here we were, another family milestone. My wife, Harper, stood at the kitchen island when I opened the invitation. She didn't even look up from her phone. They're going to do it big, she said flatly. Destination wedding. Vineyard upstate. Very elegant. Oh yeah, I said, forcing a smile. We going together, or am I renting a donkey? She chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. Mom said we should all fly first class. It's a long flight. She's covering tickets for Celeste, Dad, Derek, and me. I blinked. Just you. She took a sip of her almond milk latte. You can call a cab or something. I'll admit, for a second, I thought she was joking. But Harper had a tone, a special one she reserved for when she wanted to say something insulting without raising her voice. Like a dagger wrapped in velvet. This was that tone. Later that evening, I tried again. So I'm not invited to fly with you? Her mother, on speaker, chimed in before Harper could answer. Don't be ridiculous. Only successful people fly airplanes. Everyone else finds their own way. She laughed. Harper laughed. I did not. Now, maybe I should have swallowed my pride, called an Uber like a good little peasant, and sat in the back of the chapel while they popped champagne and custom ropes. But that ain't me. Not anymore. I called a guy I met 2 years ago through a project in Dallas. Private aviation coordinator. Top tier. High altitude. Zero humility. I told him I needed a jet, something quiet but aggressive. Something that says, I'm not just invited, I'm the finale. He got me a jet. G550. Black leather interior. Champagne and bourbon stocked. A man doesn't rise from ashes just to sip soda, after all. I arrived 4 hours late. Now before you clutch your pearls, this wasn't an accident. It was precision. Calculated. Surgical. I waited until the I do's were just moments away. Just long enough for the music to pause, the vows to hit the air, and then I walked in. Black tailored suit. Aviators. Just the hum of my loafers across the marble floor. I didn't even look at Harper. Not yet. I walked straight down the aisle like a scene out of a twisted rom-com. Celeste gasped. The officiant looked like he was about to soil his robes. Derek? Poor bastard just stood there, palms sweating through his designer tux. And then, calm as you like, I stepped beside him, clapped a hand on his back, and said, He's going to need a ride back too. Silence. The kind of silence that makes time stop. Somewhere in the back, a wine glass shattered. I didn't turn. Didn't flinch. I just adjusted my cufflinks. The best part? Harper's mother tried to recover. You think you can just waltz in here and I cut her off with one glance. No need to thank me. I came to see what success looks like in person. Then I smiled, not the warm kind. The kind that says, I know everything you think I don't. And that's when the ceremony fell apart. They say every action has consequences. What they don't tell you is that the most satisfying consequences are the ones that detonate slowly, like a grenade with a silencer. You don't hear the blast, but when the smoke clears, nobody's standing. I left the wedding hall like a man walking away from a car crash he didn't cause, but definitely enjoyed watching. Derek, the groom, looked like a mannequin who just realized he'd been bought by the wrong customer. Harper didn't follow me out. She wouldn't. Pride like hers doesn't walk. It waits for others to crawl. Back at the jet, I poured myself a bourbon and watched the sun dip behind the trees. The vineyard stretched out in every direction. Fancy people in expensive clothes were probably still inside, whispering. That was fine by me. I've always preferred being the subject of whispers rather than the source of apologies. My phone buzzed. Harper, that was unnecessary. Me. No. You know what's unnecessary? Getting married into a family that treats me like I'm lucky to carry their shopping bags. It took her 7 minutes to respond. I know because I stared at the screen the whole time. Harper, you embarrassed me. You embarrassed my family. That made me laugh. Loud. Alone in the cabin of a private jet, bourbon in hand, laughing like a villain in the second act. I let the silence answer her. No need for punctuation when silence says more than words ever could. The next morning, I checked out of my hotel early and flew back solo. I didn't wait for Harper. I figured she'd find her own ride. Successful people always do, right? By the time she got home 3 days later, the house was cold and the silence had teeth. You made your point, she said, dragging her designer suitcase into the kitchen. Are you done now? I looked at her carefully. The way you study a painting you once loved but now realize is mostly forged sentiment and borrowed colors. No, I said. I'm just getting started. She laughed. A nervous, high-pitched thing. You're being dramatic. I slid my phone across the counter. Open browser tab. A listing. $3.2 million. Modern loft, downtown. Buyer pre-approved. Closing in 21 days. What's this? She asked, frowning. My new place. She blinked. You're leaving. No, I said, standing up and grabbing my keys. You are. I walked past her like a ghost in my own house. No fight. No yelling. Just movement. That's what gets them. They expect anger. They don't know what to do with peace laced with ice. That evening, she tried to argue. Brought up therapy, healing, rebuilding trust. She even had the nerve to say, you blindsided me at the wedding. That's when I pulled out the receipts, literal receipts. Photos. Screenshots. Credit card statements. Because what I didn't mention before is that the day she told me to call a cab, I started doing exactly that, calling around. Not for rides. For answers. Found a few travel agent charges that didn't add up. A restaurant in the city I'd never heard of. One of those rooftop places where the menu doesn't list prices. 3 nights in a row. 2 glasses on every receipt. I slid one toward her. You sure it was just the plane ticket that made me not successful? Or did your family just finally say out loud what you were already thinking? She went pale. Guilt doesn't wear makeup well. You've been watching me? No, I said. I've been watching my back. But it turns out watching you is the same thing. She said she needed time to think. I said I'd already done the thinking for both of us. She could keep the house. I'd keep my dignity. Fair trade. That night I sat in my new empty loft. No furniture. Just me, a bottle of scotch, and the city lights through 12-foot windows. Funny thing about betrayal, you feel it in your chest first, like a punch. But the deeper wound is the one in your spine. You feel it when you realize someone you trusted would rather watch you kneel than walk beside you. But don't worry. The story's not over yet. Not even close. You see, her family didn't just look down on me. They bet against me. And soon, they're going to find out what happens when you bid against the wrong man. There's a particular kind of silence that only wealthy people know. It's not the silence of peace or reflection. It's the silence of discomfort wearing pearls. I saw it firsthand 2 weeks after the wedding. Her father invited me to lunch. Why? Because rich men hate being outmaneuvered, especially by the working-class husband their daughter settled for. I showed up at the country club wearing a dark blue sport coat and a smirk. Let him wonder whether I'd bought it before or after the jet ride. He was already seated when I arrived, swirling his scotch like it had personally offended him. Son, he said without looking up. I sat. Let the silence stretch. Let the waiter hover. Finally, he continued. What happened at the wedding? That wasn't necessary. There it was again. That wasn't necessary. Funny how people who humiliate you in quiet little ways think you retaliating in public is the real problem. I was told only successful people fly airplanes, I said, folding my napkin. So I flew one. He didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. You embarrassed my daughter. You embarrassed this family. I leaned forward, looked him dead in the eye. Then maybe your family should have been less embarrassing. He clenched his jaw, but I wasn't finished. You've been looking down at me since the day I showed up. You think my success has to look like yours. That if I'm not rubbing elbows with lobbyists or sipping golf cart martinis, I must be some bum she picked up off Craigslist. He finally took a drink. Probably to avoid punching me. Let's get to it, I said. You want something? What is it? He stared at me for a beat before laying it out. I want you to stay away from Harper. Quietly. No lawsuits. No drama. You'll be well compensated. I chuckled. So you want me to vanish? For a price. It's cleaner for everyone. I stood. Didn't even touch my drink. Tell Harper she can keep the house. Tell your wife her champagne budget is safe. But if you ever offer to buy me off again, I leaned in, just enough for him to smell the edge of steel in my voice. I'll be the one buying this club, and I'll have your locker turned into a mop closet. I walked out before he could reply. When I got back to my office that afternoon, there was a gift on my desk. A mop blank pen. No note. Just the brand logo and a tiny engraved message on the cap for smooth exits. Harper still hadn't moved out. Each night we passed like ghosts. She'd open wine. I'd open spreadsheets. She started sleeping on the edge of the bed. Eventually, she stopped sleeping there at all. Then came the letter. A formal envelope slid under my door one Friday morning. Divorce papers. Clean. Sterile. Heartless. Except for one thing. She wanted to split my new business. The business I started after she humiliated me. The one I hadn't even publicly launched yet. That's when I knew someone had tipped her off. Either she was watching me closely, or someone from my inner circle had turned. I called Marcus, my attorney. She wants equity in something she had nothing to do with, I said. She's claiming she supported you emotionally while it was in development, he replied. She supported me like termites support a house. He laughed. You want to fight it? No, I said, already thinking. I want to expose it. I filed a countersuit. Quietly. Behind the scenes. And I hired a forensic accountant, Aisha. Ex-IRS, sharp as glass. In 3 days, she found what I needed. Harper had been funding her parents. Not just gifts. Not just vacation tickets. We're talking thousands, from our joint accounts, sent to a family trust. One that was tied to a shell company registered under her mother's maiden name. In short, they'd been bleeding me dry while calling me poor. I handed the file to Marcus. Do it, I said. You sure? She wanted a clean break. Let's give her one. Right down the middle. Starting with the truth. Harper's world was about to shatter. But not with fire. With paper. With quiet little facts stacked like a house of cards. And when it falls, I'll be watching. Not out of revenge. Out of principle. Because when someone tries to break you and smiles doing it, justice isn't petty. It's personal. When the court papers were delivered to her work address, she called me 10 minutes later. No hello. No pretense. You're seriously going to drag my family through this? I kept my tone even. Your family dragged me for 5 years. I'm just finally standing up. Her voice dropped into that manipulative, wounded woman pitch she always used when charm didn't work. This is going to ruin everything. Our name. Your name was already a discount brand, I replied. I'm just printing the recall notice. She hung up. That afternoon, I poured myself a drink, stared out my office window, and waited. And sure enough, the dominoes started tipping. First came the silence. That eerie, perfect quiet from her side of the world. No text. No emails. No lawyer. Just nothing. Like she was frozen in place, hoping the wrecking ball would forget to swing. But it didn't. The forensic report Aisha put together made Enron look like a bake sale. Shell companies. Reimbursements. Fake invoices billed to my business account. Harper's signature on all of it. And it all flowed in one direction. Into a trust under her father's name. Even better? That trust had been used to back a failing investment fund, run by Derek, the groom from the vineyard wedding. The same man I offered a ride to in front of a stunned audience. Turns out, the man needed more than a lift. He needed a lifeline. I forwarded the file to my lawyer and gave a simple instruction. Release it publicly if they try to push. 2 days later, Harper's attorney called. A soft-voiced man with fake politeness and even faker outrage. This feels unnecessarily aggressive, Mr. Rhodes. No, counselor. That wedding was unnecessarily aggressive. I'm just responding. He tried the usual tactics. Stall, flatter, threaten gently. Then I dropped the phrase they always fear. Discovery process. You could feel the color drain through the phone line. I told him I had documents, receipts, testimony, if needed. And one final bombshell. I'd spoken to Celeste, the bride. Turns out, the princess of Chardonnay and Pinterest boards had a conscience, and a prenup she hadn't wanted to sign, pressured by her parents to protect the family. She'd suspected something was off with the finances too, but she'd been gaslit into silence. Until I showed her proof. She cried on the phone. Said she wished she'd married someone with a spine. Said she should have seen what her parents were doing sooner. I told her, seeing it late is better than never seeing it at all. By the time we hung up, Celeste had agreed to file an affidavit confirming the family trust had been a front for over a decade. Misappropriated wedding funds, fake reimbursements for family, travel, and even withdrawals that lined the pockets of Harper's mother. Now I had her sister on record. That night, Harper showed up at my place. Hair perfect, makeup natural, dressed like she was coming to negotiate the surrender of a foreign country. She walked in without asking, sat down across from me like we were still married. We don't have to do this the ugly way. I studied her. The woman I once thought was fire, turned out, she was just smoke. There's only one way to end a scam like yours, I said. With the lights on. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She smiled. That arrogant, blade-in-the-back smile that had probably gotten her out of every tight corner since she was 16. But she misread the moment. "You don't want to fight me," she said smoothly. "You'll lose." "My family doesn't lose." I stood up, walked over to my safe, pulled out a sealed envelope, set it in front of her. She frowned, opened it. Inside? Photos. Harper. Derek. 1 week before the wedding. Not holding hands, but not far from it. Just enough to raise a brow. Just enough to question timelines. Her smile vanished. "You thought I wouldn't find out," I said quietly. "But it's like your mother always said. Only successful people fly." She shoved the envelope back, trembling now. "You're bluffing." "No," I said, leaning in. "I'm done bluffing." By the time she left, the deal was done. She would walk away with nothing but her clothes, her name, and whatever credit card debt her mother hadn't racked up in her honor. No alimony. No equity. No part of my business. She'd sign in silence, or I'd file for fraud, subpoena her sister, and take this to court where she'd burn in the kind of public fire that money can't extinguish. And just like that, Harper blinked. The queen folded. Funny how quickly a house of cards collapses when someone finally stops blowing on it and starts flipping the table. The day the divorce finalized, I wore black. Not out of mourning. Out of symbolism. Harper walked into the courthouse dressed like a lifestyle blogger shooting sponsored content. White blouse, pearls, and that fake expression of quiet dignity, like she was doing me a favor by not dragging this out further. The judge didn't even look up when he signed the order. Just another file in a pile of broken vows. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. That was the thing about our ending. It didn't explode. It suffocated. A death by 1,000 unspoken truths. After the papers were filed, she turned to me like we were old friends sharing a final cup of coffee. "For what it's worth," she said, "you're not who I thought you were." I smiled. Funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. Then I walked out and didn't look back. I moved into the new loft that weekend. No furniture yet, but the silence felt earned now. No ticking clock waiting for her to come home late with wine breath and glitter on her collarbone. Just me, a mattress, and a bottle of scotch that didn't judge my company. People always ask what freedom feels like after a toxic relationship. Here's the truth. It doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like absence. You expect the poison, but it doesn't come. You wait for the manipulation, but the hook's gone from your spine. You walk around realizing the weight on your chest wasn't life, it was her. The next morning, I sat on the bare concrete floor and opened the email that changed everything. "Mr. Rhodes, we reviewed your pitch. Phoenix Concepts is interested in a second meeting." Phoenix Concepts. The firm that once ghosted me because I didn't have the aesthetic their partners liked. Translation: I didn't look like the country club kids they did deals with. But they'd seen the numbers now. And numbers? Numbers don't care about your last name or your brand of boat shoes. The meeting was set for Friday. I showed up early, tailored charcoal suit, navy shirt, no tie. Just enough polish to make them think I'd arrived. Just enough edge to remind them I hadn't forgotten who they were the last time. "Your numbers are impressive," the lead partner said, tapping the folder. "And your new AI rollout, revolutionary." "It's built on being underestimated," I said. I figured I'd return the favor. They chuckled, but I didn't. Because I wasn't joking. They offered equity, not just funding ownership. I negotiated 5% back to me personally as a silent clause. I smiled, signed, and left with a new partner and a renewed spine. 2 days later, I got a call from Celeste. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not letting them get away with it. My parents. The money. The manipulation. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You made the rest of us open our eyes." I didn't say anything at first. Then, "You deserve better than that family." Maybe. But so did you. Funny thing. I didn't need the apology. I just needed someone else to say it aloud. It wasn't in my head. The guilt. The subtle digs. The slow unraveling of a man in the name of appearances. Harper had been an anchor dressed as a life raft. And for years, I thought it was my job to hold on tighter. Turns out, some things are meant to sink. That weekend, I finally unpacked the last box. Inside was the wedding photo. Us, frozen in golden light. She was laughing. I was staring at her like she held the sun. I tore it in half. Not out of anger. Out of mercy. Because holding on to illusions isn't strength. It's self-sabotage in a tuxedo. I poured a drink. Set the torn photo down. Turned off the lights. And for the first time in years, I slept. Not like a man waiting for the next betrayal, but like a man who knew he wouldn't tolerate one ever again. It was a Wednesday, the kind of gray, cold day where the sky can't make up its mind and the city smells like steel and regret. I was on my third coffee, blueprint notes scattered across my table, when the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Rhodes? A woman here to see you. Says it's important." I already knew who it was. There's a particular knock that entitlement makes. It doesn't ask. It assumes. That's the knock I heard 10 seconds later. I opened the door. Harper's mother stood there, soaked in Chanel No. 5 and desperation. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, like this was some kind of polite visit and not the climax of a slow-motion car crash. "Depends," I said. "Are you here to insult my financial class again, or just try to rewrite history?" She stepped inside uninvited, the way people do when they've spent their entire lives never hearing no. "Let's not be dramatic," she said, brushing invisible lint off her coat. "You and Harper were never a good fit. We all saw it coming. But what you did, airing family business like that, was disgraceful." "Family business?" I echoed. "You mean the shell companies? The stolen funds? The public humiliation at the wedding you didn't pay for?" She flinched, just slightly. I caught it. "You don't understand what that kind of exposure does to people like us," she said, voice icy. "Reputation matters. So does honesty," I said, stepping closer. "But I wouldn't expect you to recognize it without a credit limit attached." She straightened her shoulders. Her last card clearly about to be played. "I can fix this," she said softly. "We can tidy up the damage. Restore your name. Help your new company get a few strategic endorsements." There it was. The deal with the devil tone. The same one she used when she advised Harper to keep me out of first class. "You're offering me hush money," I said flatly. "Think of it as mutually beneficial damage control." I walked to my kitchen, poured a glass of water, came back and handed it to her. She looked confused. "What is this?" "Just wanted to give you something to throw in my face before I ask you to leave." She stared, mouth slightly open. "Because here's what you still don't get," I continued. "I didn't burn your house down. I just took my matches back. You lit the fire all by yourself." She left. Eventually. Probably off to rewrite the story somewhere she could still play the victim. But something about her visit shook loose an old memory. Back when Harper and I were still happy, we went to a dinner party at her parents' estate. It was the usual scene: wine, politics, performative concern about climate change while someone's Range Rover idled out front. At one point, I was talking about starting my own company. Something lean, efficient, purpose-driven. Harper's father laughed and said, "You want to run a business? That's adorable. The real players don't work. They own people who do." And I laughed too, because back then, I thought I'd earned their respect. Now, I understand something they never will. Respect earned from snakes is a warning, not a compliment. Later that night, I received an email from Harper's sister. "Celeste, Mom's saying you threatened her. I know it's a lie. Just wanted you to know I'm still in your corner." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because some wars aren't won with thank yous. They're won by surviving people like that, and making sure they never get the chance to rewrite the story. The next morning, I had breakfast with the CEO of Phoenix Concepts. He'd heard rumors. "She really came to your place?" he asked, amused. "They're calling you the jet groom." I smiled. "Let them." He raised his glass. "You know, this kind of legend? You don't buy this. You earn it." "No," I said, smiling wider. "You bleed for it." She showed up at my office on a Friday. No call. No warning. Just the receptionist's voice crackling through the intercom like it couldn't quite believe the name she was saying. Mr. Rhodes? There's someone here to see you. She says her name is Vanessa. Said you'd know her." Oh, I knew her. Vanessa, my almost from a lifetime ago. Back before Harper, before the suits, before the nameplate on the door and the bourbon behind the bookshelf. She was the kind of woman who always needed chaos to feel alive and a man to keep her warm when her choices caught up. I hadn't seen her in 8 years, which made her appearance now feel less like coincidence and more like timing. I told the receptionist to send her in. She walked in like we were still 25. Denim jacket, leather boots, and that look she always wore, equal parts apology and defiance. "Well," she said, half smiling, "you clean up." I leaned back in my chair. "You tracked me down to give me a compliment?" She hesitated. "I heard what happened. About Harper. About the wedding." "Yeah," I said. "Apparently I'm famous now." Vanessa didn't laugh. She stepped closer, looking around the office like it offended her. This you now? High ceilings. Cigar-smelling leather chairs. Private equity? I built it, I said plainly. Without her. Because of her. She sat, uninvited. Of course she did. I'm not here to stir anything, she said, playing with the cuff of her sleeve. I saw your face on that tech article. Jet groom. I thought, he finally did it. Finally became what they said he'd never be. I folded my hands. So what's your angle, Vanessa? A late congratulations? Or are we circling back to a spark you poured water on a decade ago? She winced. And there it was. That familiar expression, the realization that she could never come back. Not really, but maybe, just maybe, she could hover around the door. I messed up, she said softly. When we were younger, I wanted more, and I thought you were too small town. Too quiet. No, I said, standing. You thought I was too stable. Too boring. You were addicted to chaos. She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised a hand. And I don't say that to hurt you. I say it because I've finally stopped apologizing for being the man who stayed when everyone else chased butterflies. She stood too now. I'm not looking for anything. I always wondered if I was wrong about you. I gave a slow nod. Well, now you know. She left without a hug, without even a handshake. I think that was the first honest moment we'd ever had. As the door clicked shut, my phone buzzed. Marcus, attorney, heads up. Harper's filing a motion to block use of financial records in a countersuit. Of course she was. Because when losing doesn't work, manipulators turn to erasing. I replied, send it to Aisha. Let her dance. That night, I walked the streets of the city. Cold air, concrete under my boots, the weight of the world off my chest. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. Because here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't break you. Not really. It refines you. It teaches you to trust patterns, not promises. To believe behavior, not words. And to walk away from people who only love you when they're winning. Vanessa was the ghost of who I almost was. Harper was the punishment for ignoring what I saw coming. But me now? I'm no longer chasing anything. I'm building. Every meeting. Every number. Every step forward. Not for revenge. For clarity. Because one day, they'll all realize it. They didn't just lose a man. They lost the wrong one. The courtroom smelled like polish and old lies. Not exactly what I expected. Clean floors, pew-like benches, and a judge who looked like he gave up giving a damn 3 governors ago. But I didn't come for aesthetics. I came for the kill shot, delivered legally, calmly, and without raising my voice. Harper sat across the aisle, flanked by her lawyer. She looked tired. The kind of tired money can't cover. She wore black again, probably to play the grieving ex-wife role, like I had walked out on a perfect marriage instead of crawling out of a slow-motion train wreck. I didn't look at her long, just long enough to register the subtle desperation she tried to paint over with foundation and pearls. The judge cleared his throat. We're here regarding the financial disclosures and subsequent motion filed by Ms. Rhodes' counsel to suppress forensic records introduced by the respondent. Her lawyer stood. Some overtanned, underspined man who looked like he practiced law the way magicians perform birthday tricks. Distract, misdirect, vanish the truth. Your Honor, the financial disclosures contain private family financial dealings unrelated to the marital estate. We argue that introducing such evidence is prejudicial and unnecessary. The judge turned to my side. Marcus stood. Calm. Cool. Dressed like the man who already knew the outcome. With respect, Your Honor, the funds in question were accessed and funneled during the marriage. They may involve her family, but they were extracted from joint accounts, funds that Mr. Rhodes earned and entrusted. That makes them relevant. He handed over the file. Aisha's masterpiece. Line by line. Dollar by dollar. Every cent they thought I'd never notice. The judge scanned it. His brow lifted. Ms. Rhodes, he said, turning to Harper for the first time, can you explain why reimbursements for a family-owned trust were drawn from your husband's business development account? Silence. The kind that vibrates. Harper's lawyer leaned in, whispering. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. The paper already had. Motion denied, the judge said. The evidence stands. After court, she caught me by the parking lot. Same lot where, years ago, she made me wait with the car while she networked with her mother's friends. She walked fast, heels clicking like a warning shot. That was low, she said. No, I replied, opening my door. It was the floor. I haven't even gone low yet. You're ruining everything, she hissed. I turned slowly. Looked her right in the eye. Harper, I didn't ruin this. You did. I just showed people what it looked like in the light. She blinked hard, fighting tears. Not out of sadness. Out of loss. Loss of control. Of the story. Of the ability to shape the narrative. You think this makes you the bigger person? She asked. No, I said, sliding into my seat. This makes me the man who finally stopped shrinking so you could stand taller. I drove off. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Because people like Harper never follow you when you leave with yourself intact. They only chase when they think they can still wear your dignity like it's theirs. That night, I opened a bottle of scotch I've been saving. Not for a win. For a reclamation. Of name. Of truth. Of silence finally used as strength instead of surrender. I texted Marcus one line. Next move. He replied. Settlement offer incoming. They know they've lost. I leaned back, glass in hand, watching the city pulse outside my window. Funny how losing everything makes you invincible. The offer came wrapped in the usual corporate fluff. Words like amicable, efficient resolution, and my personal favorite, mutual understanding. As if this was just a misunderstanding between two people who accidentally misplaced $500,000. Marcus forwarded the proposal to me with one line. Let me know how you want to play it. Harper's side was offering a 60-40th split. In her favor. No admission of guilt, no acknowledgement of the shell company scam, and a tight NDA clause that might as well have been written in bold, gold letters. Shut up. Take the loss. Move on. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I printed the email. Took it to the same park I used to walk through when I needed to breathe back when Harper's lies were still warm. I sat on a bench under an old oak tree, the kind that had survived storms harsher than mine, and I lit the corner of the paper with a match. Watched it curl, blacken, and vanish in the wind. Because some things aren't worth filing away. Some deserve to burn. The next morning, I called Marcus. Rejected. Counter with a 70-30th split, my favor. Full release of all claims, and they pay my legal fees. He whistled. They'll scream. Let them, I said. This isn't a settlement. It's a mirror. They're going to look into it and see every choice that got them here. That week, Harper's lawyer requested a meeting off the record. Private. No court reporters. Just two sides and a table heavy with ego. Marcus and I arrived early. Harper and her counsel walked in 10 minutes late. Power move, outdated, amateur. She was dressed in gray, subtle and sterile, like she was trying to blend into the wallpaper of her own bad decisions. I've reviewed the counter, her lawyer said, like he was about to negotiate down a car lease. Marcus leaned in. There's no discussion. He gave you the terms. The only thing left is whether you want this done quietly or with headlines. I watched Harper. She didn't speak at first. Just sat there. Then finally, she said what I'd been waiting for, the thing every manipulator says when they realize their grip has slipped. You've changed. I smiled. No, I said. I stopped apologizing. She signed. With a shaky hand, no eye contact, and no goodbye. The moment the pen left the paper, she shrank. Not in size, in presence. Like a magician whose tricks had finally been seen from behind the curtain. Marcus and I walked out in silence. When we hit the parking garage, he handed me a small envelope. What's this? I asked. Your check. Court-awarded fees, just processed. I figured you'd want to see the first return on investment. I opened it. Looked at the number. Laughed once. Low, tired, satisfied. Not bad for a man who was told to call a cab, I muttered. Back at my loft that night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving since before the wedding. Something expensive I never cracked open because we were waiting for the right moment. This was it. Not because I'd won in court. Because I'd ended it. On my terms. No more manipulation. No more doubt. Just the quiet echo of peace and the knowledge that I'd never again shrink myself to fit into someone else's shallow idea of success. I didn't fly private to show off. I flew to remind myself I don't wait for permission to arrive. 2 weeks after the settlement, I was in the middle of a product pitch downtown, clean slate, new venture, momentum finally building, when Marcus texted me. You'll want to see this. Check your inbox. So I did. A forwarded email from an anonymous source. Subject line. You should know who Derek really is. Derek. Celeste's husband. The groom from the vineyard wedding. The one I publicly undercut with 7 words and a private jet. He's going to need a ride back too. Ah, Derek. The man-child who shook my hand like he wanted to steal my wallet and my Wi-Fi password at the same time. The kind of guy who memorizes wine notes but forgets birthdays. I'd almost forgotten about him. Until I opened the attachment. Scanned documents. Emails. Internal memos. Turns out, Derek had been more than a passive player in the Harper family financial shell game. He was one of the architects. A fake consulting firm. Registered under a different name, but paid through the same trust Harper's mother had funneled money into. Derek had billed strategy sessions to multiple family accounts, including mine. Thousands of dollars a month for advice he never gave, about companies he didn't even understand. It wasn't just fraud. It was betrayal, again. Not because I was surprised, I wasn't. But because I pitied the guy. Felt bad when I stood next to him at the altar and gutted his big day in front of his overpriced suit. Now I wished I'd taken the mic and announced the catering was canceled too. I called Celeste that night. "Are you sitting down?" I asked. There was a long pause. "Is it about Derek?" "Yeah. And this time, it's not emotional. It's criminal." I forwarded her the documents. 30 minutes later, she called me back. Crying. Said she'd suspected. Said she'd asked questions, got lies, evasions. "It's all family money, babe," kind of answers. "I thought I was the fool," she said. "You weren't," I replied. "You just loved someone who thought you were too polite to check the receipts." She asked what I was going to do. "Nothing. Not yet," I said. "But I am going to make sure he knows I know." I waited for the perfect moment. And as fate would have it, it came fast. Derek reached out to me, the guts on this guy, asking if we could grab a drink. "No hard feelings," he said. "Now that all the drama's settled." I agreed. One drink. Neutral ground. We met at a rooftop bar. Derek showed up in a linen jacket like he was auditioning for a reality show that got canceled before it aired. He smiled like we were still buddies. Like I hadn't stood at the front of his wedding and slit the seams on his ego. "I gotta say, man," he chuckled. "That entrance at the wedding? Iconic. My groomsmen still talk about it." I sipped my scotch. Let him run his mouth. Then I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and slid it across the table. His smile faltered. He scrolled. His face went pale. What is this?" he stammered. "Itemized fraud," I said calmly. "Documented by people smarter than you." This isn't what it looks like." "It never is. Until it is." He looked up, panic rising. "You're not going public with this, right?" "Not yet," I said. "I believe in giving people one clean exit. No fireworks. No headlines. Just an invitation to disappear quietly." He swallowed. "What do you want?" I leaned in. "I want you out of Celeste's life. I want you to forfeit whatever inheritance you think you're entitled to. And I want a signed admission of wrongdoing, notarized, in my inbox within 48 hours. You can't be serious." "I'm always serious now." He delivered. Every demand. On time. No resistance. Celeste called 2 days later. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," I said. "Just live like you never have to say sorry for someone else's mess again." "And me?" I stood on the balcony of my loft that night, staring at the skyline. Harper? Gone. Her mother? Exposed. Derek? Silenced. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was house cleaning. Because before you build something new, you make damn sure the termites are dead. She reached out on a Sunday, which, in Harper speak, meant she had exhausted every other option and needed something fast. Sunday wasn't her style. Sunday was for brunch, curated photos, and pretending her life wasn't a crumbling Pinterest board. The message was short. "Harper, can we talk? Just for a minute. It's important." I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before responding. "Me. What do you need? Not what's wrong. Not how are you, because we don't do familiar anymore. We do direct." She replied with an address. A downtown cafe. I showed up exactly 11 minutes late, because I don't dance to her tempo anymore. She looked weathered. Not physically. No, the shell was still polished, hair blown out, outfit crisp, phone in hand like a social shield. But her eyes? They were hollow. Like someone who had finally realized there's no glitter filter for karma. She stood when I arrived, out of habit more than courtesy. "Thanks for coming. Let's not lie to each other," I said, sliding into the chair. "You didn't ask me here for closure. You want something." Her jaw tensed. She glanced around, making sure no one from her curated circle was watching her beg. "I need a favor." "Of course you do." She paused, probably hoping silence would make her seem vulnerable instead of manipulative. "My mother's business is collapsing," she finally said. "The scandal, the fraud allegations, everything you exposed. Our family name is Your family name, I corrected. She flinched. Good. We're being audited. And they're trying to tie me into it, even though I didn't know what she was doing. You signed the documents. I didn't read them. And that's supposed to make you innocent? I leaned back. You helped bury the bodies. You just didn't know they were dead yet. Harper's voice dropped, soft and trembling. I could lose everything. They might freeze my accounts. The apartment. My car. I held up a hand. Stop. She froze. You're not here because you're sorry, I said. You're here because you thought I still felt something. Silence. I sipped my coffee. Here's the truth, Harper. I don't hate you. I don't think about you. You don't rent space in my head anymore, not even the attic. She looked like she might cry. But no tears came. There never were any with her. Just performances. I stood, dropped a 20 on the table, and leaned in just enough so she could hear me over her ego crumbling. You spent years treating me like a placeholder. Like success was something you could buy, and I was the guy holding the receipt. She tried to speak. I didn't let her. Now you're standing in the ruins. And you want me to hand you a broom? I shook my head slowly. You torched the house, Harper. Don't ask me for wood. I left her there. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Because people like her never ask for help. They ask for salvation after they've set fire to their own future and realized no one's left to blame. That night, I went home and worked until 3 a.m. Clean code. Clear mind. No drama. No lies. And somewhere around the second espresso, it hit me. This isn't the revenge phase anymore. This is the peace phase, where I don't just survive what they did. I thrive in spite of it. It started with a handwritten letter, a rare thing these days. Heavy envelope. Thick, expensive paper that smelled faintly of leather and desperation. From the desk of Jonathan V. Aldrich, Harper's father. The man who once told me, in front of his entire family, that a good husband knows how to stay in his lane. The same man who offered me a payout to disappear quietly, like I was a scandal to manage, not a man they failed to break. The letter was polite, regretful, even, carefully worded to sound sincere while still wearing the polished shoes of privilege. It read like it had been edited by 2 lawyers, a PR firm, and someone who once wrote Hallmark sympathy cards. It boiled down to this. I've made mistakes. We all have. But there's a difference between accountability and annihilation. I'd like to speak. Just once. In person. No lawyers. No noise. Just 2 men and a conversation. I didn't respond right away. I let the letter sit on my desk for 3 days. Every time I walked by it, I thought of all the subtle humiliations he'd stacked over the years like poker chips. Every offhand comment, every backhanded compliment, every time he introduced me as Harper's husband instead of by name. But still, I went. Not because I owed him anything. Because sometimes, when someone digs their own grave, it's worth standing at the edge just to see if they realize they're already in it. He met me at his club. The same one that once refused me entry because I wasn't on the guest list, even though I'd paid for Harper's father's drinks that night. He looked older now. Smaller. Like the stress had finally reached his bones. Thank you for coming, he said, extending a hand. I didn't take it. He nodded. Fair enough. I won't waste your time, he began. My business is bleeding. Investors are panicking. The brand is radioactive. You didn't just hurt us. You detonated a family legacy. I sipped the water I hadn't asked for. Waited. He continued. But I'll admit something I wouldn't have a year ago. You were right. Now that almost surprised me. You were always underestimated. Not just by me, but by all of us. I saw the loyalty, the discipline. I mistook it for weakness. That was my mistake. I said nothing. He sighed. This isn't an apology, Mr. Rhodes. This is an opportunity. Of course it was. Help me clean this up. Quietly. Use your network. Your software. Your influence. And in exchange, I'll cut you in. Legacy shares. Real equity. We fix this together. I leaned forward. You want the man you once called a waiter in a tux to be your business partner? He had the decency to flinch. I kept going. You belittled me. Dismissed me. Watched your daughter bleed me dry. And said nothing because you thought I'd stay silent forever. I stood. Slowly. You don't want a partner. You want a shield. A story. The man who forgave you so your name could survive the obituary. He stood too. You could profit. You could own something bigger than revenge. I walked to the door. Turned. I do own something bigger than revenge, I said. It's called peace. And you've never had it. Then I walked out. Outside, the air was sharp and clean. The kind of air you feel deep in your lungs. The kind that tells you this is the right path, no matter how cold it gets. I got into my car. I didn't look back. Because men like him don't get redemption. They get remembered. As the reason someone stronger finally stood up. It was a Thursday. I remember because I'd just closed the first round of funding for my new platform. Clean code, clean contracts, clean conscience. I was finally building something that wasn't built on compromise. The email came in the afternoon. No subject line. No signature. Just a single sentence. Your ex-wife wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Attached was a zip file. Now, I'm not one to chase every cryptic breadcrumb on the internet. There's a fine line between curiosity and feeding the paranoia monster. But something about this, it felt precise. Calculated. So I downloaded it. Encrypted folder. Needed a password. Inside the email. Try the date she flew first class without you. I punched it in. It worked. What I found inside. Phone logs. Messages. Screenshots. Not just from Harper. From her mother. From Derek. And one other name I didn't expect to see. Liam Weston. He was one of the family friends. One of those over-smiling, back-patting Ivy League types that always hovered too close to Harper at parties. The kind of guy who calls your wife hilarious one too many times. The kind of guy I once trusted stupidly. Turns out Liam had been in the background for years. Helping clean up after Harper's family missteps. Fixing, burying, facilitating, and getting paid handsomely for it. One file stood out. A voice memo. Harper, talking to her mother. He's too trusting. It's almost sad. But Liam's got the accounts handled. If anything goes wrong, it'll all trace back to the business under his name. I played it 3 times. Let that knife twist all the way in. I sent the file to Marcus. 5 minutes later, he called. Where did you get this? Anonymous source. This blows open an entire other angle. If Liam's holding the straw accounts, and he moved money through those businesses, he's the key to proving intent. I didn't ask for next steps. I gave the green light. Do it. Quietly. Because the truth is, Harper and her family, they weren't just snakes. They were organized snakes. And I wasn't just a victim. I'd been a target. Later that night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Now you see the full picture. Consider this my contribution. I was one of Liam's fixes once. He tried to bury me too. I've been waiting years to return the favor. I stared at the screen for a long time. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about pattern. How many others had they run through? How many people had been chewed up by a system so confident it would never be questioned? The next day, Marcus sent a single text. We've got him. He's flipping. Liam had cracked. The moment he realized we had voice files, transactions, and witness statements, he folded like a wet napkin. Offered to cooperate in full. Testify. Provide every document, every transfer, every text. In exchange, immunity. I didn't care. I wasn't after him. I was after clarity. And now I had it. Every play, every lie, every backroom maneuver Harper's family had executed, lined up in a timeline that told one story loud and clear. They didn't just fail to love me. She called me. Not her lawyer. Not her sister. Her. I didn't answer. So she tried again. This time, a voicemail. I know you probably don't care, but you should know what they're saying. About you. About us. This is getting out of hand. Oh, sweetheart. It's only just begun. 2 hours later, an email. Short. The subject line said, "Can we speak privately?" I ignored it. So she showed up. At my office. Wearing the armor of polished gilt, subtle jewelry, a modest blouse. No makeup bold enough to suggest she was still trying to win. Just enough polish to look human. I stood in my doorway, arms crossed. You've got 5 minutes. She didn't sit. Didn't offer a hug. Didn't even fake a smile. I'm not here to beg, she said. I'm here because what's happening now, it's bigger than what we did to each other. I said nothing. Let her dig her own rhetorical grave. My mother is being investigated. Derek's business is frozen. Liam's being subpoenaed. And now the media is circling. They're coming after me like I built this whole thing myself. You didn't build it, I said coldly. You just cashed the checks and signed the lies. She blinked. Not tears. Just time running out. They'll take everything, she whispered. I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a small manila folder. Then they should start here, I said, setting it down between us. She opened it. Inside, a breakdown of every dollar I traced. Where it started, where it landed, how it all tied back to a single account Harper had access to. Her lips parted, A soft gasp of disbelief. You kept all of this? No, I said. I built it. She closed the folder slowly, like it burned. What do you want from me? She asked, voice brittle. I looked her dead in the eye. I want you to finally understand, I said, that this isn't revenge. This is accountability. You spent years playing pretend. The perfect wife, the loyal daughter, the one who never knew. But the world you helped construct? It's real now. She stepped back, like the truth had actual weight. Then why not destroy me? She asked. You could. You already have the upper hand. I stepped closer. Because destruction is too quick. I want you to live in what you built. Every article, every whisper, every frozen asset. I want you to feel what I felt. Powerless, while the truth moved without needing your permission. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just left. And for once, she didn't look back either. That evening, Marcus called. Guess who filed a public statement of withdrawal from her mother's company? Harper. Full disavowal. Trying to distance herself. Classic CYA move. Let her, I said. Because here's the thing about Harper. She never understood how legacy works. You don't protect your name by hiding from fire. You protect it by never striking the match to begin with. Later that night, Celeste messaged me. Celeste, you were right. About all of it. About them. About her. I'm just sorry it took me so long to believe it. Me. Belief comes late. Truth doesn't. I looked out the window. City glowing. Heart still. A life finally stripped of rot.